Shit. I wanted to get right into something that actually you had pointed out the other day. There are scientists, actual scientists, who are now trying to study the supposed size. They're trying to get to the bottom of how big was Moby's dick. Moby Dick's dick, the whale in Moby Dick. How big was his shaft?
Yeah.
And because there's apparently a whole chapter
It was
where
taller than a Kentuckian, is what.
as tall as a Kentuckian and as wide as a whatever, like a freight train or something like that. It's really a weird chapter that's like all about sex and the dick.
Yes.
And it's almost like who's the writer of Moby Dick? Oh yeah, okay. This shows us how much we know, right?
I never read it.
I never read it
never
either.
had to in school, and then it just hasn't come back up in my top ones that I've got to read.
I think it was one of those things on a reading list, like a summer reading list.
Yeah.
Here's one of the choices, and I always pick the ones about like war or nonfiction. I never wanted to read any of that shit, so I don't think I ever read Moby. Maybe a chapter or something like that. But anyway, so
Herman Melville.
Herman Melville
Just came to me. I think that's who wrote it.
Oh, that's that. Sure. Herman Melville, the writer of Moby Dick, says Hoadley.
It just popped in my head.
He wrote a whole chapter, like chapter 11 is just apparently he went crazy for a minute and just started writing this chapter.
I don't even know if it's Moby's dick. I think from what I read in the article, it was another whale that had died. And that he then was able to put on the skin of the dick as a robe.
So you know what they call that? And this is an actual thing. They call it pizzle leather.
Good old pizzle leather.
Schnizzle my pizzle, mizzle.
What's that? What's that coat you've got on made of there?
I'm glad you
only
asked.
the finest.
It's the finest in pizzle leather. I didn't like my pizzle leather. Well, it smells a little funky. That's the sign of good pizzle leather. Pizzle leather. I'm gonna start calling my penis a pizzle. I'm like, Astrid, hey, you want some of this pizzle? Can I schnizzle this pizzle up on your pizzle?
Astrid will be like, what?
I mean, listen, it gives a whole new definition to the meaning.
You gotta spice things up.
Yeah. Well, here's a question. It's a whole new meaning to the thought of circumcision, right? When you're thinking about cutting off a pizzle and putting it on as a robe. The age-old question. The age-old question has always been: does size matter? Now, these scientists who take this entirely too seriously. I don't know why you would be studying this. Try and get to the bottom of how big Moby's dick was, or whoever's dick was involved, whatever whale dick this guy was talking about. But does size? They're saying they estimated that it was between 7 and 8 feet long, and like the girth of a car, small Tesla. Does size matter? Is the question that has always been asked. It's almost a trope at this point, right? And everyone says no, size doesn't matter. It's how you use it. Is that true, or does size matter?
I mean, I think it matters up to a certain point.
What is that point? How many inches is that? How many inches is that point? That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. I'm trying to see if I'm up to that point where it doesn't matter anymore.
I think you would know.
Well, maybe. Maybe.
Astrid would have known.
Well, that's true. Yes. I don't take Astrid for the kind of person who would have settled for less. No, let's put it that way.
Right. Me either.
But she certainly didn't get the super size. I'm not that big gulp you get over at the. I'm like a Starbucks, grande.
Grande.
I'm a grande. Yeah, it's probably more. It's probably a little bit more than you need, but you can, you probably take it if you need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want the small or whatever they call it. What do they call that one? It's a grande, venti, and regular or whatever they call it. Yeah.
Large or something.
Something like that. Some fancy Italian name. It's all bullshit. I never remember. I just always say large, right?
Yeah.
And so the small one is just, a gulp. But then grande is like, it's probably a little bit more than I need, but just right. And then the venti is always, you're flying off the rafters.
I love the venti.
Yeah, I bet you do. Chrissy's getting all excited about pizzle. So then that made me do some research, right? Because all my life I've heard this trope, but I've never really understood. I've never done any research on this.
Yes.
I've never measured my own penis. Okay. I have no idea how long or how short it is. I'm sure it feels just fine to me.
Yes,
I've never had any problems with it. fits nicely in my hand. Everything's going well, right?
Good.
I've never had any complaints, but I'm not sure I would have dated anyone that would have been rude enough to complain. So you know what I'm saying? Or actually, that's not true. I think I did one time date somebody that was rude enough to complain. She did. Okay, so there you go.
Okay.
But so I did some research. The average penis length in the United States, according to the most recent poll that I could find, or the most recent research that I could find, is 3.9 inches. 3.9 inches flaccid. Soft.
Yes.
3.9 inches. And there's a certain way you got to measure this. It's very important that you measure it correctly, because if you don't, you're gonna be walking tall, or you're gonna be depressed for the rest of your life. So 3.9 inches soft. Most women, according to this poll, according to this research that I did, in a study that was done, say that so the 3.9 inches equals somewhere around, like, I forget what it was, like 5.78 hard or something like that, right? You grow.
Some people are growers and some people are showers.
That's right. Most women said in this very scientific study about sex that 5.5 inches was adequate. That 6.5 inches was pleasurable, and that anything over 7.5 inches was maybe a bit much for most women, right? Now, that's not every woman. That was like 59% of the people said 7 inches is too much.
Okay, yeah.
And then anything over 8 inches, forget about it. It's like, there's a very small percentage of the population. Most men, when asked how big their penis was before measurement, would say 6 inches. That's right. Would say 6 inches. While most men were actually only 3.9 inches, right? When asked how big they were hard, they said close to 10 inches.
10?
And they were only 5.8. So there's a big difference between perception and reality.
Yes, there is.